So last week, live on my stream, I was using this Fanatec Handbrake, and in the middle of it, it just broke. And all of a sudden, I was left with a very, very limp handbrake like this. Now, I've never faced this issue before, I've never fixed it before, but apparently it's a fairly common issue, and today we're gonna just look at it, see what happened, how are we gonna fix it. Let's do it. So I've already removed the front two screws and the screw at the bottom. This is of course where the kind of headphone jack type connection goes in, but that allows you to pop this front cover off, which I'm just going to place over here somewhere, and then you can see the inside of what the handbrake looks like. So obviously when you pull the handle, it pushes down. Now this damper, when I opened this up first, this actually confused me a little bit because I was expecting this to actually compress a little bit like it would on a load cell brake or whatever, but this is actually just for the return. So when this spring does its job and returns, this damper is only there for that, because some people like to pull the handbrake, let it go, and it bounces hard. If there wasn't a damper there, it would probably rattle this thing to bits. But what you see here, what actually happened is there was a little washer of sorts sitting on here that kept this spring down below this collar. So if we undo the screw at the bottom, we can actually expose that collar and see what it's like, what it should be like. So this should, that comes loose there like that. And then we can see when you pull this up, this is the collar that I'm talking about. So there was like a washer of sorts here. Now the problem is that, and this bar screws into that, the problem is that that is just a pretty crappy plastic washer, and I actually have bits of it here because it properly exploded on stream. But you can see what it looks like now in my hands. That's what it looks like now. That was a washer. So those plastic parts that you saw, they came off the collar of this. This is still stuck in here, and I'm actually going to leave it in place because it does a decent job of centering the bar within the spring, and I don't have a spacer like this with a proper washer attached to it, so I'm hoping that it'll do the trick if I just use a fairly basic washer. So let's kind of put that a little bit back together, slot the bar in there like that. So what I want to do is put a washer on top of this spring, and hopefully once that goes back in and is all tight, the washer will stay in place, and hopefully that will do the trick and I'll be able to use this tonight. I'm lucky enough to have one of these big things of washers that I got in Aldi or something like that, and that has lots of different sizes, so we can actually, if we take out the spring, we should actually be able to see roughly what size we need. That's too small. This one here looks about the right size. So just the one should do the trick. So there's actually another piece in here that looks very like the part that broke. So this is the exploded one, and this one here has a little collar on it. Now this one sits at the bottom and it sits against the metal, so it actually sits in this hole here, and that should fit snugly in there. There we go, perfect, and that actually stays in place there. So that one we don't really need to worry about. So we have another washer here which sat on this side of that little damper. The damper goes in from the underside like that, through that little plastic piece. The spring sits on that. Now I am going to put, as I mentioned, I'm going to put this back in there because it will be handy for centering the spring. That was its main purpose first day. So there we go, through there, and then I'm going to put this washer on top and hopefully try and get that bar in there. You can see that the bar doesn't quite sit proud of the spring, so it needs a little bit of pressure just to get that into place. So I'm going to do that here. It's probably not going to be pretty on the video as long as I fix my handbrake. I don't really care, and actually use the desk a little bit as some leverage. too big. Maybe too big. Oh, it looks like that washer is actually too big because it's going up the collar, and that's not what we want. The washer here, this hole is just too big. It's going all the way over that. So I'm going to use one of those smaller ones as well, and hopefully that will sort us out. Maybe an even smaller one again. I might have to do 3 washers here. So big one, slightly smaller one, and an even smaller one. I know that these are probably going to wander and all that. I don't really care as long as I get my handbrake functioning. And the metal washers are bound to do a better job than those plastic ones did. So as you can see, that's actually pretty difficult. So I think what I'm going to have to do is undo these bolts at the side, try to get this all in place as one piece, and then redo these at the side. I think I'll just have better grip over this. So let's just quickly do that. We'll take these bits off. Now, in theory, this should be loose, which it is. Great. So, we're going to put this piece back in here. The spring sits on top of that. We're going to put our little piece in there that will help us hopefully center that bar. Then we want our washers on top. We want this bar in underneath, so we'll do that. And then we want that to mate up with this. So this should allow me to get a little bit of pressure on this spring just to allow that mating to happen. And hopefully we're not introducing too much space with these new washers. There we go, you can see the couple of washers on the top. And what we want to do is we want to compress this enough so that we expose that wire. Then we somehow have to get that onto this. So there's a little clip on this guy here, hard to make out there, but that'll allow me to take this off that little swivel ball. I'm gonna have to take that off, I think, because otherwise this could be a fairly excruciating job. So let's take that off. There we go, and this pin should just come out. So that's what that pin looks like. This should just come off here now. That means that we should be able to put this guy on, and our little guy. Now, just have to compress those, which is the hard part. There we go. Just get that last bit on. Oh, bollocks! So it might be wise if I had more time to just glue these together, make for a little bit less of a headache than what I'm having right now, because right now they're just sliding all over the place, and a bit of glue might just do enough to at least be able to mate them properly. So I want to push this down. You can see the thread is exposed, but then the trick is to get this on there. So it's a pretty tricky operation. Right, so I finally got it. What I ended up doing was I put the top washer on, and I got spanners, one on each side. I pushed it down as far as I could, and then that exposed enough thread for my wife actually helped me to put the top 2 washers on and screw on that. So this should now just be a case of, so this will sit in pretty much like that. The ball will be facing that way, so let's get that back in place. This should click on there quite easily. There we go. Put that more or less in place. Grab this. This needs to go up in here and click around like that. So that's back in place. Now we have a functioning handbrake to a large extent, but we have the luxury of being able to just pull this handle and line up those holes, as you can see at the side. So let's just get those holes back in place. It's not under any pressure right now. We'll get these bolts back in. Splat, must you? I'm trying to do a video here, Splat. And now we should hopefully be able to just pull that. Now there's a lot of tension on that, which is actually not a terrible thing. It's more tension than the stock offering. So if you even just want to upgrade your tension, you can do that. If you want to make it even stiffer, then you can actually just wind that up. It makes it even stiffer. I do tend to wind it up a little bit because that bar tends to let loose over time, so this gets kind of loose. So if you regularly just make sure that that's up. Now if and when this goes, it's going to be because that bar has worked itself loose. That's very likely to happen. It happens with these. I have adjusted that part before, but I haven't had the washer break before. So I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to assume that this all works because I'm not doing any work with the actual potentiometer in there or whatever. I know there's probably a little bit more strain on that part right now. You can see it's kind of bowing out. So maybe I should loosen this just slightly. But I don't want to loosen it too much because then it will pop loose. It would be nice if you could maybe even just see in here how far that's in, or if there was a better solution just to guarantee that that's actually in place. Splat needs some food. My handbrake is most likely fixed. If I have fixed it, you'll find out on the rally stream tonight. So here we go. I have it mounted back up on the rig. I've just left the cover off it for now. As we can see, it seems to work swimmingly. Pretty nice. Now there's a little bit of you can see that this is kind of tilting over to the right a little bit. Shouldn't give too much hassle. We'll see how it behaves over time. It's definitely working better now than it did. If you've solved this problem, do give me a shout and just let me know how you solved it. This is the quickest way that I could think of solving it, and I just want to get it back out racing again. Hopefully this will hold tough for my rally stream tonight and long into the future. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that this was useful to some people, and I'll chat to you all later.